So, hello everybody and welcome. Yes, welcome back here at BSN Network. Today, welcome you back here at BSN Arc. This is the BSN Arc podcast here today. It is Wednesday, September 16th. Hope everybody's having a good day so far and had a good rest of their day yesterday. I know I did. We got a lot of sports to get to today, both baseball and college football news. Yankees absolutely tore it up last night. They won 20-6, a football score. They won. They had more points than both the Jets and the Giants did in their Week 1 games, which is just fascinating to me. Just goes to show you how much New York football teams are gonna struggle. I know I talked highly about the Giants yesterday, but I still don't think they're gonna finish above 500 this season. I still think they'll be under 500, 6-10 range again. Same thing with the Jets, 6-10, 7-9 range once again. Although the Jets look like they could very well finish 4-12, 3-13 the way they played against the Bills Week 1. We'll see what all happens with that. The MLB, we had some breaking news come with the MLB. Breaking news with college football. The MLB playoff bubble plan. So they came up with a plan. The MLB and the MLBPA have agreed to this deal. They will be doing a playoff bubble and with neutral sites, neutral fields, wild card games, division, championship, and obviously the World Series will be at neutral sites. We'll talk about that coming right up here. And then we have the Big Ten will play college football in the fall. The Big Ten re-voted. They're going to be doing rapid testing, re-voted, changed some of the health policies, the health protocols. The Big Ten will be playing in the fall of 2020. In 2020, there was a lot of talk that they were going to play. They decided on playing in the spring of 2021. And a lot of players, Justin Fields being one of them, was very vocal about him wanting to play. Big Ten is now officially going to play. Big Ten, for example, teams like Penn State, Rutgers, Ohio State, Michigan State, Ohio State, they will all be playing. You know what the Big Ten is. It's one of the biggest conferences out there. It's one of the biggest Power 5 conferences out there in all of college football. So I'm sure you know what the Big Ten is. This is huge for college football, huge for sports in general. Big Ten will return. First games will be August 24th. So should be a lot of fun. A little bit more than a month away from that, but at least these players can get back out onto the field and get back to playing the sport they love, which is football, and obviously them trying to make that next level, which is to go pro in the NFL. That is big news. Now with the Yankees, Mets, and Islanders come up with a huge double OT win. There was a couple key players in that game that played very, very well. They now take the series to a Game 6 tomorrow against the Tampa Bay Lightning. Once again, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Game 6. They won yesterday. They're down 3-2 in the series. They need to win 2 straight, and then they'll be going on to the NHL or the Stanley Cup. We'll talk about that. Yankees dominated 20-6, and and the Mets obviously played yesterday as well. So we'll talk about all those games coming up later on in the podcast. So with all that being said, this is the BSN Arc podcast, and let's get right into it. So MLB announces dates, locations for playoff plan featuring neutral site bubbles. So the MLB is deciding to do a bubble. This was something that was talked about by the MLB, the MLBPA, sports in general. Everybody's talked about doing a bubble, whether it's a bubble to restart your season, give the NHL and the NBA both did that, or whether you're talking about a playoff bubble. In this case, the MLB is doing that, and if NFL might be doing that as well. There's been many talks over a bubble. Who's going to do a bubble? Are you going to do a bubble? What's going to be the deal? The MLB in the beginning of all this, right, back in April, May, when we were in the prime of this virus and the MLB was trying to start back up, NBA, NHL was trying to start back up, NFL was still figuring out on what they were going to do with training camp and all that stuff because they were still virtual at that point. They obviously they've been trying to do. They were trying to do all that stuff. The MLB was actually one of the first leagues to think of a bubble idea. They're going to do 2 hub areas. They're going to play in their spring training facilities. They would have a team in Florida, they would have a team in Florida, or teams in Florida. Obviously, there's 2 spring trainings. Teams play in Florida, and there's teams that play in Arizona. So it would be Florida teams would be a division, all the Florida teams would be a division, and all the Arizona teams would be in a division. And I think the neutral site was to meet up at Texas Rangers Ballpark, which is the new ballpark, Globe Life Field, for the championship game. Which would have been, actually championships coming up, World Series coming up within the next month or so from now. So that was kind of their deal, was to meet back up there, all that stuff. They were going to do a bubble. The bubble in Florida, there would be a bubble in Florida. Florida teams play Florida teams. So, for example, teams that have their facilities in Florida are teams like the Yankees, teams like the Blue Jays, teams like the Rays, right? Teams like that, they play in Florida. Those teams, Yankees playing Tampa, Port St. Lucie, teams, areas like that. Then you have the Arizona teams, which is, obviously, I think the Diamondbacks are up there, the Cubs, that's the Cactus League. Then you have that's the Cactus League. So you would pretty much have 2 divisions, the Florida division and the Arizona division. That's what the MLB was originally going to do. The MLB never did that. And they decided to go on and just do a regular old season, kind of what the NFL is doing. No fans playing your own ballpark. Regulated schedules. East Coast plays East Coast teams. Central plays Central. West plays West. So AL East plays NL East. AL Central, NL Central. AL West, NL West play each other to limit the travel. Try to limit the spread of the virus as much as they can. It's worked out so far, except a couple of problems here and there. Cardinals had an outbreak. Marlins had an outbreak. Those were the 2 main outbreaks. Since then, the Mets had only 2 positive cases. The MLB revised and edited and made corrections to, if a player does test positive on a team, they made corrections to it. And now the Mets had a player test positive. They were back out on the field within like 4 days. Reds had a player test positive, back out on the field within 4 days. So teams now are all of a sudden, if a player gets test positive, they have this new plan in place where you're back out on the field in 4 days. Rapid testing, rapid results, are able to get back on the field faster, instead of the Cardinals and the Marlins situations where they were off for an extended period of time. We're talking 2-3 weeks. Marlins, I think, for a month. Or the Cardinals for like a long time. I mean, the Cardinals are playing their ninth game while everybody else was playing like their 25th game. It was pretty crazy. They missed a ton of time, and so did the Marlins. But, with doubleheaders, they've gone now caught up, and they're back on track with the schedule and everything. I know the Giants and Mariners game got canceled yesterday or 2 days ago. It was one of the days, but it was not because of virus case. If you all know about the wildfires happening in California, the air quality was horrible, so the Giants couldn't play. But other than that, the MLB's been very successful, I would say. The MLB's been pretty successful. Ratings have been booming. Play has been good. Play meaning good, like there's been good competition. There's a couple blowouts. I mean, the Yankees if you want to talk about the Yankees last night, I'm happy they won that big. But, obviously it's been good play. It's been close games, a lot of no-hitters. You've seen a lot of good pitching, a lot of good hitting, a lot of overall good play, some nice plays, some nice hits, some nice fielding, some nice all-around. Baseball's been good all around. There's been a couple of errors here and there, but that's also what's going to happen when you're trying to play a sport during a pandemic. I mean, it's just what you got to expect. You're going to expect some bumps along the way. You can't expect a smooth road when you're trying to play during a global pandemic. You're going to hit a couple bumps here and there. It's expected. So now the MLB has decided to make a playoff bubble. I've been a big person in believer in this, and I'm going to tell you what, I was wrong about the NBA. I was wrong about the NHL. I did not think either of those bubbles would work. Couple reasons. I kind of just did not think a bubble would work for a couple reasons. First off, the players are not in their home stadiums. I was a little worried on how the fields would look, how the rinks would look, how the courts would look. I was a little worried about that. Like, are these players just going to be playing on like these random courts that these people like? Are they going to be playing on these random rinks? I actually like the NBA and the NHL plans are good, right? The NHL plan is boom. The NHL ratings have been up, people. The NHL ratings have been up big time. And I've been watching the NHL ratings, or watching the NHL a lot. It's been good, some good hockey. why I did not think the bubble was personally going to work is players leaving the bubble, right? I thought that was an error. That was an issue in especially in the NBA bubble. There was a lot of people who left the bubble. You found that there was a lot of players leaving the bubble to care for family members that either, got it or there's just something going on in their family that had to leave the bubble. That's the one problem. Another thing with the bubble, too, is you're away from your family. Now, the NBA did just start recently allowing people in family members into the bubble for the second round of the playoffs. Now we're talking Western Conference and Eastern Conference Finals now. Heat, Celtics, Lakers, Nuggets now. So, there's less and less and less people in the bubble. But if you follow what I'm saying, you're away from your family. That's another thing. I was worried players are going to get, kind of just maybe a little, not upset, but, kind of to the point where if you're away from your family for a long time, it can get difficult. Now, I just overall just did not think a bubble would work. I thought playing at a neutral site, having a bunch of, just having you all staying in one hotel, it just didn't sound good. Like right now, during with the virus on, it just doesn't sound like you would want to be. Everybody stays in one single hotel. Everybody, have to be on the same floors. It just doesn't seem correct. And when you try to fit all these teams, all these players, all these personnel, health trainers, all this stuff into a bubble, I just thought the cases would just spike in there. That hasn't been the case. There hasn't been a case in either of the NBA bubble or the NHL bubble, and I think since June 28th. I think that was the last case, and we're sitting here talking September 16th. It's probably one of the safest places to be playing sports right now. Here's the positives about a bubble. That I thought it just wasn't going to work. People leaving the bubble, when I saw the food in the bubble, I thought it was horrible. I thought players were going to leave because they're seriously not going to have enough to eat. The food's horrible. Players aren't eating that much. I just thought for sure, put it all together, I just thought for sure, the NBA, these bubbles would not work. I was completely wrong when I said that. There has not been positive cases. Players have been healthy and safe. You look at the MLB, for example, they've had some positive cases due to the fact that they are playing in public life. That's the one problem with having a bubble. Without a bubble, I'm saying, is you're going back into public life. These players are going back into public life, right? After they play their sporting event, they're going back into public life, whether they're going out to outside dining, whether they're going out to indoor dining, wherever they're going back into public life. You don't know what, they are at the field. After that, you don't know where they're going. As for you're in a bubble, you go from the hockey rink to the hotel. They didn't go anywhere else. As for no bubble, you could be going from the field to a friend's house, to just straight up walking around, to going to a restaurant, to going to somebody else's house, to doing all this stuff, and you could catch the virus due to that, right? That's the thing. When you're in a bubble, you're going from the field or whatever you're on, the court, the rink, or the field, you're going from there to a hotel. You're not going from there to wherever else you go. So that's why I think bubble's going to work. I've heard a ton. I think the MLB is going to do a postseason bubble. They did a postseason bubble. I think the NFL is going to do a postseason bubble. We don't know yet. A postseason bubble is an option for the NFL. And I think the MLB nailed this. I think the MLB's postseason bubble plan looks amazing. I think it does. I think the setup is good. I think the wild card, the division games, and the championship games look good. I think there's going to be good competition. I think it's going to be a safe environment. I think it's just going to be like all the rest of the bubbles. Teams that are in the playoffs, and it's going to be limited, and it's going to be less teams too. It's going to be less teams. It's not going to be more teams. It's going to be less teams. Compared to some of the bubbles, there's only going to be 16 teams in this bubble, because some of the bubbles like the NBA, there was 22 teams. NHL, I think there was somewhere around there as well. So you have to worry about less teams too. That's even easier. So I think this is perfect for the MLB. I think this is the right move for the MLB. Now, could this also, here's another thing this could hurt, is the bubble sometimes is a little difficult because when people are away from their families, they could get, they're not very, it could be bad. So, it might be rough for some of these MLB players having to leave that. Some of them have been going back to their families since they're playing. Some of them do. If they don't really have a big family, maybe they just go back to the regular house. But still, the problem is if you're leaving your family, going to a bubble, you're not going to be in there for too long because it's just a postseason bubble. And you could be out there in very well 4 days. If you are in the wild card game and lose in the wild card round, you could be very well out there in 4 days. So, Some teams will be longer than others, but some teams won't. So with all that being said, MLB, your final home series for the New York Yankees will be against the Marlins because you're not going to be playing at Yankee Stadium. Now here are some of the stadiums that will be played at. You'll have it at, obviously, you'll have it at Texas Rangers, Globe Life Field, their new stadium, who was supposed to open up this year. It did technically open up this year, but, technically not to the public. It didn't open up to the public because you obviously have the whole virus, so you can't allow fans into attendance. And Rob Manfred did say that World Series, there's a possibility of fans being allowed in the World Series. So that's good news. So I'm going to tell you, I think this whole bubble idea, this whole bubble plan is a success for the MLB. I think this is a success. I think MLB is going to be good with it. And I think for the MLB, this is a step in the right direction. I also think, the cold time of year, more players can get sick, more things could happen. You're going to the warmer areas. They're going to California. They're going to the Texas. Right? They're going to those areas, more baseball fields, more areas to play in. Is a good idea. So MLB announces dates, locations for playoff plan featuring neutral site bubbles. So, Major League Baseball and MLB Players Association reached an agreement to host the 2020 playoffs, including the Division Series, League Championship Series, and World Series in neutral site bubbles. The league unveiled the locations for postseason Tuesday, also noting the American League playoffs will begin September 19th, while the National League will open play one day later on September 30th. So, American League playoffs less than 2 weeks away. A week yesterday will start, or 2 weeks yesterday will start the American League playoffs. So very exciting news. Here's a full breakdown of the postseason schedule. So hold up. So there's the postseason schedule. So I'll read the postseason schedule right after I'm done reading this article. With the World Series being played solely at Globe Life Park in Arlington, home of the Texas Rangers. It will mark the first time since 1944 that the entire Fall Classic will be played at one venue, per Ronald Bloom of the Associated Press. Joel Sherman of the New York Post and Bob Nightingale of USA Today provided further information. Heard the plan right now. Players on contending teams will have a quarantine at a hotel in the final 7 days of the regular season. Daily COVID testing. Players can elect to leave the hotel if their team is eliminated. Also heard that teams will be allowed to keep operating the alternate sites, but there won't be any transfer of players allowed from the alternate site to the MLB club after quarantine begins. So expected all 40-man rosters and those on the IL to be part of the quarantine. Players on contending teams must leave their homes and stay isolated in hotels for a week beginning September 22nd for AL teams and September 23rd for NL teams. Teams must submit postseason eligible rosters, 28-man active rosters, and 12 taxi squad players to MLB by September 20th. Teams can grant special exemptions for players to stay at home instead of hotels to players who live themselves. So hold up. I just got something in. An update came on my phone. It blocked my screen. Teams can grant special exemptions for players to stay home instead of hotels to players who live by themselves, live with a pregnant spouse, partner, or one with medical needs, or have lived with children most of the season. So, for example, what I just read there was people who have somebody in need. They don't have to, they can stay home instead of hotels. So to care for them or to be home with them. That's kind of what I said. That's the one problem with bubbles, is if you have somebody that's in need and you can't care for them because you're stuck in a bubble, and if you leave, then you have a 7-day quarantine period. That's the problem. Then you can't get back to your team. So it's kind of a lose-lose. So that's actually what I like about the MLB. They're giving the players a flexibility depending on if they have that. If they don't have any of those problems, then I think they got to kind of go to the hotel, because I don't foresee it. If some of these players, if you're living alone, I don't foresee you really having the need to stay at home. You probably would just go to the hotel. One of the few sticking points in negotiations was how the league would handle quarantine. Would handle quarantine requirements for players, family members who hope to enter the bubble. Details are still uncertain, per Rosenthal. Los Angeles Dodgers third baseman Justin Turner was among the players critical of the plan that would force families to quarantine for 7 days. He told Rosenthal last week their families could attend road games during the regular season as long as they would travel on a private plane or drove themselves. You're asking us to choose between our families and the playoffs. That's a stupid question, especially when we've played however many successful games this season. Obviously, there were two early on outbreaks with the Miami Marlins and St. Louis Cardinals, but it was out of poor choices by individuals. Other than that, it is pretty successful season. Why change all the protocols now? We finish the last week of our season at home. I'd be at my house with my wife. Then they're like, we've got to separate you guys. I don't understand why she would be quarantined. I lived with her the whole season. And an MLB source told The Athletic the league needed to take extra precaution for postseason. I get the whole thing. I get the whole deal with the whole family thing. But also, and I don't want to start to get into the whole, I don't want to be mean or anything, but if you don't want to play in the bubble, if you feel it's not safe, then don't play. I don't think there's any. And that's another thing. I think Justin Turner, he made a couple points there, but I think there was one interesting point. He did kind of say why does they have to quarantine? Well, they have to quarantine to make sure everybody else is safe. So he's complaining that they have to quarantine, but he also wants to stay safe. But the same token, if you want to stay safe, you have to quarantine for a little bit. A little bit of a disconnect there. You just can't be in a position to roll the dice and say, look, the Dodgers have been fine so far. Let's hope it stays that way, that the source said. If you're running the league, it's not the type of policy you would want. It's basically policy based on luck. That's the whole thing, though. Like yes, I get it. It's worked this whole entire season, but that's the last thing you need is a team to have an outbreak right in the playoffs and then look. Right, and then look what happens. Then your whole playoffs is all messed up. Because then there's probably 2-3 cancellations of games. World Series is now backed up. Other games are now backed up. You can't play a doubleheader in the playoffs because that's just not fair. So you have to make sure it's safe because playoffs are important. It's the most important baseball of all this is the whole season. MLB didn't utilize the bubble concept during the regular season, and the first round of the expanded 16-team playoffs will take place at higher seeds home stadium. The NBA and NHL are among the leagues that has successfully used the bubble to complete their postseason, and MLB will follow in their footsteps. A shortened 60-game regular season is scheduled to finish September 27th. September 27th. The last possible date for the World Series is October 31st. So could we see a Mr. November once again? The Mr. November, let's say. Probably not, but. So the last day to complete the World Series is October 31st. So you're talking an absolute sprint to the finish now, people. Sprint to the finish because it's September 15th, 16th right now, and you're talking a little bit more than like a month and about 2 weeks. About a month and 2 weeks until you get to the World Series. So the World Series is right around the corner, people. So these teams don't have many days off. These teams are going to have to figure out ways to utilize their taxi squads, utilize their players, rest players, make sure players are healthy because, like I said, Yankees have no days off the rest of the season, and then they have probably those 2 days off, then they're in the playoffs. And I can just imagine the playoffs are going to be a sprint. You got all the wild card games, division games, championship games, and the World Series. So the upcoming schedule for the MLB is packed. Very packed. So this is a good plan, I think, for the MLB. Because I think it's the safest way to return to sports during a time that we are in, involving a virus. I think it's the safest way. Although I would much rather watch my New York Yankees when they're playing at Yankee Stadium. Same thing with the New York Jets. I just like it better. I like to watch it when they're home and stuff. I just like personally, instead of watching at a stadium that's not even theirs, it's just weird. Like, it just doesn't feel like that same energy. Like, when the Yankees are playing at Yankee Stadium, you got the pinstripes on, you're all pumped up and stuff, and, like, if you're watching them in a different stadium and it's considering them to be a home game, is just odd to me. I would rather the teams play, but, like I said, it's what's safest, and I like this deal because I want to see baseball in the postseason. I don't want to see baseball play 2 games in the postseason, have an outbreak, and not be able to finish it because, not be able to finish because, somebody was either being stupid or, there was just a straight up outbreak on one of the teams. That's why I think the bubble is the safest. That's why the bubble is very safe, because you're able to really, really, really tell. You really are able to keep the players safe in the bubble. So I like this deal for the MLB. Happy they decided to do it. I think that it's a step in the right direction. I think it's what's going to keep the players safe, and hopefully we get to see some good postseason baseball. That is really what we hope for. You saw, and that's another thing too. Everybody says, "Oh, what's been working now?" Well, the MLB's thing's been successful, but not to the point of where the NHL and NBA are. They haven't had a positive test since June 28th. The MLB, they've had outbreaks, 2 of them, and Mets and Reds as well. And I think the Giants had a positive case a couple days ago, but they're back playing because the new rapid testing idea. But still, you can't risk having another outbreak like the Marlins and miss 2-3 weeks, and then all of a sudden you can't complete the playoffs. You can't risk that. Playoffs are important. It's the most important baseball of the year. The World Series, Game 7 of the World Series is going to be the most important game of the year. If you get an outbreak the day before the World Series and you can't play it until 2 weeks later, there's a problem. That's why I think the bubble plan is a great idea. Great idea. And I was actually, when I heard about this, I was expecting it to be a full-on fight because I was expecting the Players Association not to agree on it because you saw how hard it was in the beginning them to agree on a return to play proposal. For them to agree on a postseason bubble proposal would have been even more difficult, I thought. But they agreed on it. MLB announces dates, locations for playoff plan featuring neutral site bubbles. Should be a lot of fun. Got a packed a packed month of baseball coming up. Should be fun. It should be a lot of fun to watch this race to the finish. There's going to be a lot of interesting things. Still, some teams are on the brink of making the playoffs. The Yankees are back at the 5th seed, so I would imagine we probably get in the playoffs. Luckily, thanks to these 6-game win streak we found ourselves on. We find ourselves probably making the playoffs. It's going to be a lot of fun. These teams have about 2 weeks. Less than 2 weeks to, especially some of these teams I named it like yesterday, like a team like the Phillies. They're a team that's right on the brink. They're probably like an 18th, 17th, 19th team right now. They're trying to get in as that 16 seed. There's a couple teams that are right on the brink that these next 2 weeks are very important for them. So very important for them. So there should be a lot of good games coming up. And so the MLB postseason playoff bubble is officially going to happen. Should be a lot of fun. Coming up next, Big Ten is going to play college football this fall. That also is going to be a lot of fun to watch. We'll talk about that coming up next. Alrighty. So Big Ten announces return to play 2020 season on October 24th with a unique schedule, daily rapid testing. So Big Ten football is officially coming back. So the Big Ten football will be officially coming back, and there will be Big Ten football. There will be one of the biggest conferences in all of college football. It will be playing in the fall of 2020 in about a month, in like a week. there will be, in about a month from now, we will be seeing Big Ten college football back on the field. We will be seeing Penn State. We will be seeing Ohio State. We will be seeing Michigan. We will be seeing Michigan State. We will be seeing Illinois, Indiana, Rutgers, Minnesota. All the teams in the Big Ten. Iowa, Northwestern. All the teams in the Big Ten, we will be seeing them play in 2020. A lot of people thought we would be seeing them in spring of 2021. I personally did not like that. I wanted to see the Big Ten. I'm perfectly fine with just the ACC playing right now because Miami's ranked since the other Big Ten teams aren't in it. Miami right now is ranked 17th. But I personally wanted all the divisions to play. Here's my thing. I think it's fair for all of the conferences to get a chance to win a national championship. And that's what a lot of these coaches have said. Ryan Day, James Franklin, a lot of these coaches have said that they want to play college football. They want to get a shot to go to the national. They want to try to get a shot at winning the national championship. That's their whole thing. Playing in the spring, national champion's already going to be crowned. You play in the spring, it's kind of playing for something different. Like maybe the national championship 2.0, but it's a lot different. It's not going to be like playing in the fall. And that's one of the big things. That is one of the big things. So the Big Ten re-voted yesterday. And a lot of people, and this is what the Big Ten has said multiple times. A lot of people agree with what the Big Ten's doing. I know there's a lot of people who disagree with college football sports. I know there's a lot of people out there who disagree with sports in general being played right now, whether you're in a bubble, out of a bubble, however you're playing sports. A lot of people disagree with playing sports at the moment. I personally, and this just might be because I love sports so much, I personally agree with sports being played. I think if you can do it safely, I don't think it's a bad idea. I think, you look at these players. These players in the NHL bubbles and stuff like that, they haven't had a positive test there since, June 28th or whatever, and that's really when they just came into the bubble. And I think that's a safe environment. It's a very safe environment, right? It's not like you're just, I think sometimes the NFL and MLB not as safe of an environment, although the NFL has been very successful. The NFL is not of a positive case, and we're through week 1. We're on Wednesday right now, and there hasn't been any reported outbreaks on any team. Obviously, there hasn't been any more positive cases, or else we would have heard about it. So we've heard very positive news. We're through week 1. And, for example, like the Jets, they played on Sunday. They've already been tested 3 times since that, and obviously no positive tests. So the NFL has been successful. MLB's been successful after a little bit of that rocky start. And NBA and NHL obviously haven't had any positive case. That's because they're playing in a bubble environment. I've been a big believer, and I think sports could be played. I think it's very well possible. Now, do you just throw players out there, not test them, not do anything with them, just say, go throw them out there, have a packed house of fans? Maybe not, but I think if you do protocols, test them, get their temperature, make sure, they're not, going out and doing stupid things. You kind of have them going from, the stadium to the house to maybe, something else. But, things like that, you're kind of just, you do, they go out and just do their daily thing. I think you could definitely run it safely. Now, the Big Ten was one of the first divisions to come out with their schedule. And everybody was like, the Big Ten's playing, the Big Ten's playing, the Big Ten's playing. And all of a sudden, 3-4 days later, the Big Ten voted on it, and it was a 9 to, or what was it? It was I think it was 11-3 vote in favor of not to play. 14 team presidents voted, and 3 of them voted to play. 11 of them didn't. And now today, or yesterday or whatever, they voted, and it was a unanimous. All 14 team presidents, athletic presidents, school presidents voted to play Big Ten football. So obviously, and I know a lot of people here are like, this is stupid. Well, obviously, they've changed the health protocols. They've changed it. They want daily rapid testing. They're going to get daily rapid testing. That is why they voted. People, some people don't understand. Some people think the Big Ten didn't play because they just don't think it was safe. The Big Ten didn't play because one, maybe they didn't think it was safe, but number 2 was they didn't have all these other conferences and stuff. They had the daily rapid testing. They had the testing they wanted to. They had all the health protocols in place. The Big Ten had some unorganized health protocols, and that's why they didn't feel like it was this was not the right time to play. They fixed the health protocols, read daily rapid testing, new policies they have to follow. Now they really believe it is completely safe to return. Still playing during a pandemic, but with the policies, the health protocols, the testing, it's going to be a lot harder to catch the virus. And another thing is these players want to play. Justin Fields has been a big. He's been very talkative through this whole time about him wanting to play. This is a guy too that could very well be a top 10 player in the next year's NFL draft. You play in fall, you might not get the chance to play football due to the fact that, or you play in spring, you might not get a chance to really be scouted that highly because spring is when the draft is. So Pac-12, for example, they have not yet decided if they're going to play yet. It looks like Pac-12 remains that they're going to play in the spring. Big Ten has now switched. You heard what the head coaches have said, and if you watch College Game Day every Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. or 9 a.m. to 12 noon p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 to 12 Eastern Standard Time in the morning to noon. They have College Game Day on. And College Game Day this weekend was obviously in Wake Forest for that big Clemson-Wake Forest game. Clemson blew them out, but it was in Wake Forest. And they had Ryan Day and James Franklin on and two other Pac-12 coaches, but I want to focus on the Big Ten since they're the one who's returning to play. They had them on. And Ryan Day and James Franklin have said multiple times how much their players are not really hurting, but how much their players are really missing football. And that's one of the big things, is they want to get these players a chance, especially the seniors, the players, especially the Justin Fields of the world who are very rated high, and this might be it for them in college football because they might just be headed to the draft. For players like that, they want to play another year of college football. You play in the spring, you don't know what's going to happen if you play in the spring. More players could opt out, the ratings could be low, and this is another thing I said too. You might actually lose a ton of ratings if you play in the spring, because during the NFL season, during the college football season, if you play in the fall, you dominate Saturdays. In November, when baseball's done, you dominate Saturdays. Saturdays are yours. Sundays are the NFL's. As for spring, you have NHL, NBA, MLB, and then college football. So you won't dominate on Saturdays in the spring. In the fall, you dominate. In November, Saturday is college football. Saturday isn't no NHL or NBA. Saturday is college football. Sunday is NFL. Your ratings are going to be much better if you play in the fall. Your ratings would decline. I know it's not all about the ratings, but I've been one of the persons to say one reason they actually should play too is the ratings. You're going to lose big ratings if you play. The NBA, if you play, let's just say, start in April, or May even, April. Let's start in April. April or May. Let's just say you start your season in April. You're talking, you could be playing very well during the NBA and NHL championships are going on. And when the MLB is in their full swing of their season. That could be a problem. You no longer will dominate Saturdays. As for in the fall, they dominate Saturdays. And that's what these head coaches said. These players want to play. They want to play, but they want it to be safe. They want the daily rapid testing. They want the different health policies. They want to make sure they can socially distance out there on the field. So the college football has updated those policies, updated those protocols, and now we're sitting here talking about college football being played in the fall. And another thing is for the fans. Right, a lot of these Big Ten fans, because they're passionate, the Penn State fans, the Ohio State fans, you don't know how many teams out of there are contenders for a natty. Ohio State's a contender. Minnesota has looked very good. Penn State's looked very good. Michigan's very good. There's a lot of teams are coming out of there. Illinois has been surprising good. Indiana's had a couple nice games last year. There's a lot of fans that were really looking forward to this season. Rutgers fans, they have something to really look forward to. The return of Greg Schiano, they really believe he's going to flip the program around and bring them back to what Rutgers looked like when they were a part of the Big East, and that is making bowl games and winning bowl games. They really believe Greg Schiano's that kind of guy to do it. He did it when they were in the Big East. They think he could do it again. Rutgers fans are very excited to see that, to see him come coach again for the Rutgers, and then the season got put on pause, and you were like, oh, we got to wait till spring now to see him. Now, all of a sudden, fans are pumped again. Okay, we got to see what he can do. So, what I'm talking about is it's good for the fans, it's good for the players, and it's good for the coaches. Very exciting that the Big Ten's coming back, and it's very good that they're coming back in a safe environment. It sounds like one of the safest in college football. From what I've heard about the testing, it seems very good. Big Ten football announces return to play 2020 season on October 24th with a unique schedule, daily rapid testing. The Big Ten announced Tuesday that its Council of Presidents and Chancellors have voted to allow the league to play football in fall of 2020. The Big Ten will open its season on the weekend of October 24th with teams playing 8 regular season games over the 8 weeks along the Big Ten playoff championship games and 6 additional consolation games. By the way, I'm pretty sure how the schedule is. The schedule ends a day before these college football teams, the Big Ten games, they end a day before the college football playoff is made. Which is actually a little bit of an error because then you don't have your conference championship game, which is big, I think. Their last game will be a day before college football playoff is made. Pretty sure. So, that's big. So, Big Ten championship game is scheduled for December 19th, making the Big Ten eligible for college football playoff as the college football playoff rankings announcement of the season is set for December 20th. So, they just get their season in time. And that's why you can't have any cancellations because then you probably won't be able to get a chance to be in the playoffs. So, the Big Ten championship game is December 19th. The college football playoff decides on the college football playoff committee, they're going to decide on who's going to make the college football playoffs a day after that. So their season just gets squeezed in the nick of time. So the Big Ten has to make sure they do everything right because they don't got much room for error. So Big Ten just going to squeeze in their season. The Big Ten will also play league consolation games with teams placing 2nd through 7th place in their divisions matching up on December 19th. There may be adjustments to those games. However, as Wisconsin Athletic Director Barry Alvarez has said, the Big Ten will try to avoid repeat matchups if teams have already played in the regular season. Tickets will not be sold and fans will not be allowed to attend games this season, though expectations may be made for families, or exceptions may be made for families of athletes, coaches, and staff. The Broncos, by the way, speaking of that, the Broncos, I don't know if you saw that Monday night game 2 nights ago. The Broncos had 50 or 500. Was it 50 or 500? Not 100% sure. But they had people, kind of a test run. Family members of players, coaches, and staff were able to go to the game against the Broncos and the Titans. As the Broncos will be allowing fans, I think, their next home game, which is probably week 3, I think. They will be allowing fans. I think they're going to be allowing 16,000, 19,000, something like that. They will be allowing at Empower Field or Mile High Field in Mile High in Denver, Colorado. They will be allowing fans in there. So they did a test run with family members of players, coaches, and staff, and I think it went well because I haven't heard any crazy news on it. So I think it went well. But it was just a test run to make sure they could get all the protocols in place and can socially distance throughout the seats are all in place. So, it wasn't anything special. I think they were still pumping it for a crowd noise because it's so little. I think it was only like 500 people in there, I think, compared to 16,000 is very little. It didn't even fill up the whole lower bowl. It was just this little section. It was probably from like the 40-yard line to the other 40-yard line. That's how much it stretched. It was very small. I saw it in the beginning of the game, and I was like, hold on a second. Is that fans? And at first, I thought it was just like staff members maybe because they just didn't have enough room on the sidelines. But I was like, I didn't see that with any other team. And then the sideline reporter, Lisa Salters for ESPN, ended up talking about it, about how there are people there, and they are, family members and stuff. So, it was pretty cool. I mean, it was a test run, so I guess we'll see what the real thing is. Week 3, I think, is their next game. The conference will now feature daily rapid COVID-19 testing as a focal point of its return-to-play plan. Testing for athletes and coaches will begin on September 30th. The earliest an athlete could return to game competition in 21 days following a positive diagnosis. Additionally, the Big Ten unveiled new information on its plan of myocarditis screenings in the wake of any positive tests. Both of these were major concerns that were among the main reasons the Big Ten original decision to cancel fall football on August 11th. From the Big Ten's release, each institution will designate a chief infection officer who will oversee the collection of reporting of data for the Big Ten Conference. Teams test positivity rate and population positivity rate thresholds will be used to determine the recommendations of continuing practice and competition. All COVID-19 positive student athletes will undergo a comprehensive cardiac testing to include labs on biomarkers, EKG or ECG. I'm going to struggle on this one. Echocardiogram and a cardiac MRI following cardiac evaluation. Sorry, if I messed up those ones, I'm not a very. Those are some complicated words. By the University of primary purpose of cardiac clearance for COVID-19 positive student. I think that was that thing that was happening if you got the virus. I think regarding positivity rates, the Big Ten will use data provided by the CINO, which is what I read earlier, to make decisions continuing practice and competition based on 7-day rolling average. Enhanced prevention will begin once team positivity rates reach 2 to 5%, which a team positivity rate goes over 5% and a population positivity rate goes over 7.5%. Big Ten team will stop practice or competition for a minimum of 7 days. The Big Ten initially canceled football until spring 2021 amid questions about COVID-19 testing and tracing, along with long-term heart issues that have been reported in some patients with coronavirus. A return to play task force was created by the Big Ten to evaluate its options for either starting in spring 2021 or finding a way to play this fall. Its medical subcommittee met Saturday with 8 of the league's presidents and chancellors, according to multiple reports, to share updated medical information, including the availability of widespread rapid response testing that could allow teams to test daily while decreasing the need for contact tracing. Additionally, new information about myocarditis and inflammation of the heart muscle was shared, part of the Big Ten's decision to eschew football to a later date, and based on the studying outlined concerns of myocarditis and its links to COVID-19. The remote comers of the considerable backlash for the Big Ten's initial cancellation went 11-3 with only Ohio State, Nebraska, and Iowa electing to play football. Most notably, the conference and Commissioner Kevin Warren received pushback for their muddled message and inability to get on the same page as the member president on down to the coaches and players. The Big Ten has since fought a multiple front public relations battle, and it's received pressure from players, coaches, parents, and even President Donald Trump has said multiple times that he said it, I've heard too, that he wants to see college football play this season. Big Ten, he was talking about the Big Ten. Because, everybody sees these players want to play, and I think that's really what they want to do. They want to be safe, but I think these players also want to say as well. In an open letter 8 days after canceling football, Warren said that the Big Ten's decision would not be revisited. The obviously changed to reverse the vote. The league needed 9 of the 14 presidents voting in the affirmative to play, meaning 6 who previously voted to cancel have to change course. Despite the delayed start, there remain numerous roadblocks for an actual return to football. Wisconsin football and hockey, for example, recently paused for 2 weeks after a rash of COVID-19 positivities. Meanwhile, games across the country continue to be postponed left and right. Virginia Tech, Houston, Memphis, Army, BYU, and SMU, TCU are just some of the 13 games have already been postponed. Some games may be canceled if new dates are not easily achieved. So, there has been some postponements. I mean, you're just going to have that when that's what I said. There's going to be postponements. It's really, can you return quickly, though? It's one of the big things. So, the Big Ten's coming back. The Big Ten will be playing college football. They will be playing college football. So, the Big Ten will be playing college football this season. I was not expecting that. I'll tell you what. I mean, when I heard that they want to play again, I was like, okay, this is going to happen. But then, So 130 nominees for the 2020 Hall of Fame class. You can see all of them. So, anyway. So, you obviously see with all these obviously see all these teams, players, all these teams. It's obviously exciting to see all these teams get back in action, see these players be happy that they're going to be playing college football. That is great news for the MLB, what am I talking about? For college football. That is great news. So now we move into the MLB. I was thinking ahead of myself there. We move into the Yankees football game yesterday, quite literally, as we beat the Toronto Blue Jays 20-6. Absolutely dominated them. Offense looked good. Pitching looked amazing. David Garcia's got a bright future ahead of him. Today we play 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We moved to 27-21 on the season, second in the AL East. We are now only 4 games back from the Tampa Bay Rays. So things are actually getting interesting now. The Yankees won 20-6. Yankees had 20 runs, 16 hits, no errors. Blue Jays had 6 runs, 11 hits, 1 error. This is going to take me some time. Just saying, the Yankees are going to take me a decent amount of time to get this all these stats in. So, LeMahieu went 4 for 6 with 3 runs and 5 RBIs. Voit 3 for 5 with 2 runs, 5 RBIs. They both had home runs. Voit had 2 home runs. Voit leads the league in home runs now. Kratz went 0 for 0 with a walk. Hicks went 1 for 4. The run scored an RBI and a walk and an RBI. He hit a home run as well. Talkman 0 for 1. Stan went 0 for 4 with a walk. Stan struggled yesterday, but he's also coming back from that injury, so he's still knocking some of the rust off. Higashioka went 0 for 1. Urshela went 3 for 4 with 3 runs and a walk. Estrada went 0 for 1 with a run scored. Frazier went 2 for 3 with 4 runs, 2 walks, and 2 RBIs. Gardner went 1 for 4 with 2 runs, a walk, and an RBI. Sanchez went 1 for 4 with 2 runs and 4 RBIs. He hit a home run as well. Wade went 1 for 4 with 2 runs and 2 walks, or 2 RBIs. One RBI as well. Everybody was hitting. Everybody in our lineup got a hit except Estrada, although he was a pinch runner. He only got 1 at bat. And Talkman, Estrada, and Higgy, and Stan were the only ones who did not get hits. But, a couple of them were pinch hitters as well. Garcia pitched 7 innings, 6 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. Michael King, 2 innings, 5 hits, 3 earned, 2 walks, 1 strikeout. Yankees win 20-6. Absolutely dominated. And, we play the Blue Jays tonight. Give us another win. Yankees, give us another win. As we dominated yesterday, I think we dominate again. Mets play today as well, 7:05 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Phillies move, and this is one of the things with the Mets, and when I was looking at this score too, and this is another thing with the Mets, they're just not able to come up with a big hit late. They're getting people on, they're getting chances. They just can't come up with that big hit. They can't come up with that big play. They can't come up with that big moment in the game to really just come up and have a big impact. I noticed that with the Mets a lot. The Mets have not been able to find ways to just come up with that big moment in a big game to come up with a big hit. The Mets lost. Mets had 1 run, 11 hits, 1 error. Phillies had 4 runs, 6 hits, 1 error. That's another thing. They've had times where they have many base runners on. They just can't seem to get a hit. 11 hits and you only score 1 run. Kind of tough. Brandon Nimmo went 2 for 5 with a run scored and a RBI. Conforto 1 for 4 with a walk. Jay Davis 2 for 5. Dom Smith 1 for 4. Cano 1 for 3 with a walk. Alonso 0 for 4. McNeil 3 for 4. Jimenez 1 for 3. Ramos 0 for 3 and Gilmore 0 for 1. Porcello went 6 innings, 6 hits, 4 earned, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. Wilson 1 inning, no hits, no earned, no walks, 1 strikeout, no strikeouts. Diaz 1 inning, no hits, no earned, no walks, 3 strikeouts. Mets lose, they move to 21-27 on the season, and the Phillies win 24-23 on the season. I give the Phillies the win again. The Islanders yesterday won their game, double overtime, big play in that game, 2-1. They won. Huge for the Islanders. Matt Barzal had another good game. He had a point, assist, and 2 shots on goal. Jacob Eberle, he had the 1 goal and the 1 point and 2 shots on goal. He had the big goal late. Some nice passes. Barzal with a nice pass. Letty and Anders Lee with both assists. They look good. And Johnny Boychuk, too. He got some time in that game, too. Had a couple nice plays. Had a couple nice shots on goal. Yes, they did not find the back of the net, but they were still able to get some shots on goal. Anders Lee had another good game. Eberle, Barzal, Clutterbuck, Matt Martin had a couple nice plays here and there. The Islanders are staying alive. And this is another thing too. Like, the Lightning are clearly probably the better team than the Islanders, but the Islanders have so many scrappy and just players that just want to win so much that they're winning some of these games, and it's big for the Islanders. Islanders is definitely big for them, so it's obviously very good. Varlamov, the goalie for the Islanders. He had 37, one goal allowed, 37 shots on goal, 37 shots allowed, and 36 saves, 97.973 save percentage. He looked very good. Couple nice plays by the Islanders last night, which was able to propel them to the win. Tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, they play again. Something I noticed in the Yankees game as well. Look how many hits the Yankees had. We had 16 hits. You get over 10 hits or something, you probably should win the game. I know the Blue Jays only had 11 hits, but still, they scored 6 runs. 6 runs could very well win you a baseball game, but the Yankees just had an offensive outburst. 16 hits they had for the Yankees. Dominated that game. I'll tell you what, if you see the right fielder on the Blue Jays, like, he really struggled. He had a couple bad plays back there. He had a couple bad plays. I don't know what it was, but he was struggling yesterday. I don't know if you saw it. He was struggling, though. The Yankees right fielder is doing perfectly fine, Clint Frazier. The Yankees are doing good. The Yankees are dominating right now. 6 straight wins. It's great. It's great. So, Yankees, I give them another win. And you can, and I know a lot of people were like, oh, Stan, how bad it's been. I mean, and this is the problem with playing during a virus. These guys don't have time to go down to the minor leagues and play a game because the minor league got canceled. They go to the alternate site, they get some batting practice, and they don't see live pitching for a long time. They see live pitching, and things are different. That's the thing. You don't have the minor leagues to rehab. You have to go down to the alternate site, get some batting practice there. It's nothing like what's used to. That's another thing, too. Like, these players, they don't have access to the batting cages, too. Usually when you play without the virus, you go down to the batting cages and they could swing and take hits. Right? And they could swing the ball. They could swing the bat and they could take hits in the batting cage in between at-bats. They can go into a room and watch film. Without the virus, with the virus now, they can't go down to the batting cages since it's too enclosed area. You can't go into the film room and watch that stuff. It's kind of same thing with pinch hitters. And some people don't realize this. A pinch, because the TV doesn't show this. If you're gonna get pinch hit for, sometimes they tell you innings in advance. They'll tell you even with the virus, they still tell you. They'll tell you now about probably sometimes like 2 innings in advance. Be like, okay, there's a chance this guy comes in. There's a chance you're gonna pinch hit here. When they get that call, they go down there and get some swings in the batting cages. With the virus on, and then you can't go down there. When they go up to pinch hit. That's their swings. Those 6-7 warm-up swings you see them take on deck? Those are their swings. They don't get to go down and take 30 swings in the batting cage and come up and pinch hit. They take 6-7 swings, not see live pitching the whole game, and all of a sudden you got to step up there and you do it good. That's why it's hard. That's why it's difficult. So, that's why I get it. There's some players that have down years this year. That's why I'm finding it fascinating that some players are really tearing it up. Because you don't have the batting cages. You don't have the film rooms. You kind of got to do everything on your own. So, but the Yankees looked amazing. Yankees, big win. Big win for the New York Yankees. Should be a lot of fun to watch them again tonight. So with all that being said, that will do it for the podcast today. Hopefully you all enjoyed it. I know I did. I know I enjoyed doing them a lot. I will see you all back here tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed it, and thanks for watching.